Hey, welcome back to Student of the Gun Radio, and we appreciate you joining us today. I appreciate the fact that you have at least shown a little bit of proper decision-making skills. You've tuned in today, so that is a good thing. You're on the road to recovery. I am Paul Markle. I am your host, but I'm not in the glass case of Emotion Studios today. No. As we told you last week, we are currently on the road, although I don't know where I will be on planet Earth when you hear this, but it doesn't really matter. When we recorded this, we were in Nacogdoches, Texas. That's right, the first city, that's what I've been told historically, that Nacogdoches is famous for being the first organized city in the Republic of Texas. And Jared has done a fantastic job rebuilding the mobile studio in the classroom at CSAT. That's Combat Shooting and Tactics. You're like, aha, I've been following you guys on the Twitter machine and the Facebook machine and on the interwebs and all that good stuff. And I knew you guys were out there. Well, if you know that, you're probably all giddy and you're moving around in your seat there. You might have even tinkled a little bit in your panties because we have a special guest today. My special guest is Paul Howe, Master Sergeant, retired U.S. Army. And if I say anything wrong, I'm sure he will correct me. But Paul Howe is with us today, and we've spent, Jared and I, my good friend Shane Iverson, who I've talked about previously, is also a friend of Paul's. He's working with Paul, and he said, hey, why don't you come out? Paul's doing an urban defense course, and that would be a great time for you guys to show up. So we did. We brought our rain gear, we brought our cameras, and we were able to get through it. So we've got video and, of course, audio for you. And without further ado, I would like to thank Paul Howe for joining me today. Paul, thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your service to our country as well.
I appreciate your service. So we both appreciate each other's service. But
we do.
We do. Now, Paul, I have no idea, quite frankly, how many in our audience know about you. So let's go ahead and start with the basics. You are Paul Howe. You were in the Army, and that's what they know. Elaborate from there.
Well, Paul, I started a long time ago, actually in the communist state of California. I tell people two things you can't control in your life: who your parents are and where you were born. Everything else you have impacts. So started Law Enforcement Explorers, and then actually became law enforcement for 3 years in Colorado before I went to the military. They actually rejected me when I was 18. I told them I had asthma, so I waited 3 years, lied, and went to a different state.
There you go.
Yep. So spirit versus the letter of the law. And so I spent 20 years in the military, 10 years special ops. I stayed infantry my whole career, and then I started CSAT just prior to getting out. And for the last 16 plus years, been running CSAT, Combat Shooting and Tactics. Started working with LE, Advanced Hostage Rescue classes. Started marksmanship, sniper classes, and got about 20 classes on the books right now that I still continue to teach. I'm backing off the law enforcement a little bit. I still do government security and working more with civilians.
Okay. And that's something that we wanted to talk about right now, because in the current climate, in the situation that we're in the United States of America, we are in unique territory for most people. Most people have never been in a situation where they felt I think a lot of our audience, I know they do, they're sitting out there and they're thinking, I know this isn't right. I know things aren't the way they're supposed to be. And at the same time, they may be thinking, I should be doing something, but I don't know what that something is. And one of the things that you have available to the listening audience, to the American, the armed citizen, the armed American citizen, is your urban defense course. And kind of give us the nickel tour of the urban defense course and why it would be important for today's America.
Well, we've been in uncertain times for a few years now. During my time in the military special ops, I think I visited over 15, 16 high-threat countries. There were a lot of different states of decline. And the only people that really see that in our country right now and can notice and have a reference point or a point of reference is military. Most people come into this society, they live in this insulated environment. They don't get to see what the real world is like outside the United States. And even if they travel to really nice areas versus some of the impoverished areas. So what happens is I've worked in these countries, helped stabilize the U.S. government interests, protect American citizens. And what happens is I get the chance to see that and the things that, they don't have, the different environmental conditions, and then we see it a little bit in our country, but not that often. Usually it's a Katrina type situation. But we have uncertain economic times now. There's a lot of information, misinformation in the press. We don't really know what's going on. As we become more technologically reliant, we become more vulnerable also to problems.
Yeah, I think the more you rely on your iPhone, your Android phone, or what have you, you're fed the information that you're really supposed to get. And what we've been telling people on in the Student of the Gun audience right now, every time you encounter a story, a news story, ask yourself, is this part of the ignorance, distraction, or guilt? Is this story designed to keep me ignorant, distract me from something else that's going on, or is it designed to make me feel guilty so I will surrender just a little bit more of my liberty because I feel bad now? A kid got killed in a school in Maine, and I live in Montana, and I'm supposed to feel bad and give you my guns because that'll make the situation better.
Oh, exactly. I mean, our media is just not to be trusted. And it's hard to question because a lot of them have degraded so much. We look at our government right now. A few days ago, Hillary's testifying, and what happens is we do a special operations raid the same day. Is that necessary, or is it done as a distraction? Why are we rescuing Iraqis? I mean, it's surrendered. Why are we putting American lives in jeopardy over this? Again, these are things you come up with and you go, it's a lot of coincidence. Why did it happen on that day and not another day?
Well, it's, sadly, a lot of people Jared's age and even older that are in their 30s don't remember the Clinton era, but every time he got in trouble, someone got bombed. I mean, you had to think if you were a third world dictator in the nation, you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah,
Slick Willie's in trouble this week. Is he going to bomb us?
Exactly right.
To take the heat off of him?
Is there a scandal going? Does he need to find a way out?
And there was Jared, do you remember? You can shake your head up and down. The movie called Wag the Dog. See, he doesn't, but Wag the Dog was essentially how can we distract the American people? This is happening. We need to generate a war over here so people won't pay attention to what's going on over here. The economy's collapsing. The dollar is getting worth less and less and less every day. What can we do? So we've got that set up. We know that we're in a situation where we should be doing something, but a lot of people don't know what to do. That's where a class such as urban defense comes in.
Correct. We need to try to teach people realities versus the myths, the things they read out there, and show them what's practical, what's not. We talk about being physically, mentally, tactically, technically proficient at simple things, the basics, and that'll carry you through. It'll give you the confidence to weather situations. And so what we do is try to do that in a 3-day course, tune them up. We don't demean students here. What we do is try to educate them. We come in all different levels, and we want them to leave at a higher level than they entered the course. And also we do follow-on. So if things come up after the course, then go ahead, email us or contact us, give us a shout, and we'll try to say, all right, you can do this or this. We don't try to isolate it into one. We say there's a lot of different options out there. What's the best for you? We have people that come from big cities, and we have people come from rural America, 2 different venues.
And it's not an introductory course by any stretch of the imagination. This is like, I just got my concealed carry permit, now I want to go to this class. This is something for people that maybe they've got some of the mechanics down. They've already been to a class. They've been to a flat range, square range shooting class where they learn basic fundamental marksmanship and how to come out of the holster without shooting themselves. So they got that down.
Correct.
But unfortunately, I think that a lot of people, they're so excited by the fact that they took an 8-hour square range class and didn't shoot themselves or anyone else that they're, oh man, I'm good.
Correct.
But are you carrying a gun for play, or are you actually going to carry it around other humans that you don't want to shoot? Are you going to carry it in a car, in your house, outside of your house? And that's where urban defense comes in.
We replicate all those scenarios. What we want to do is take students and put them all these environments, teach them before we test them. And we really don't test. We put them through a scenario and say, all right, fix this and this. We try to give them a couple things to polish up for the next scenario. Then we run it again. If you run a scenario one time, it's for entertainment. If you run it twice, it's now training. So what we want them to do is train to higher levels. It's more of a one-on-one. The instructors are moving all the time with students, watching them, give them a little bit of feedback. When I talk to a student, I give them one thing at a time to fix.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really appreciate the fact that you have a beautiful facility here in Texas, CSAT. It's been described as a golf course that you can shoot on. It's that nice. well, it's a golf course that you can shoot on that has impact areas and shoot houses and also vehicles. And recently we talked about props, about range props, and how many law enforcement agencies, they used to have things like they would put fire hydrants downrange and old mailboxes and so forth. And I just wrote an article about range hazards, about you need to put things downrange that can absorb bullets, like plastic barrels instead of steel.
Correct.
But the one thing that it really kind of slapped me in the face while I was here that you can't replicate without actually having is a car.
Yes.
I mean, you can build a fake wooden car facade, but that doesn't teach you how to get out of a seatbelt.
Correct.
That doesn't teach you how to negotiate past the steering wheel and deal with doors opening and closing. So that's kind of like with the caveats. Like, yeah, we don't want steel things downrange, but the fact is the only way you can learn to get in and out of a car safely is to get in and out of a car safely.
Oh, you've got to do it. It's absolute. I actually use my own truck. That's how much I trust the teaching and this system that we use. And we do it dry, static, and then we make them go through. If they can't do it dry, they don't go live. And we talk to them. We show them how to do it. We demonstrate it. If we need a live fire demo, we do that. And then what we do is we make them execute dry until they get it. And when they do, we don't push them faster. We push them at their speed and capability. We make them execute, and then we do multiple reps. They can't get it one time. It's going to take multiple reps. And we have to have the patience with the students. We stair-step the training. We build it so it builds on each other. And generally, we don't have accidents. I mean, never had an accident in 16 years, 17 years of doing this. I don't foresee any happening unless a gun blows up, something like that, out of my control. But the training methodology we use keeps the students safe, instructors safe, and it just it builds confidence. We had a husband-wife team in the class, and she's been to other classes, high-stress classes, a lot of screaming, yelling. It kind of put a damper on her training. And what happened is she came here, and it kind of just opened everything up. Not afraid. She nodded her head. She asked questions. We took her as an individual and polished her up. And what happens is we do that with everybody. Everybody's at a different skill set, and we try to be really keen on that. Pick up that attitude, that person, learn them, and then get them as far as we can go in a 3-day course.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up, and now that I'm able to digest the whole entire weekend, because we're at the end of the last day now. When we first got here on day one on Friday, and I saw her go through her first drill, she was like a wide-eyed rabbit, kind of like stepping on eggshells. Am I going to do this right? Am I going to get in trouble? She was going like real super slow, and she was very timid because she was afraid she was going to do something wrong. Like, wow. Right. But now thinking about how we finished the day yesterday, and I didn't even notice it until you mentioned it, but yeah, she was a different person at the end of yesterday's training drills than she was at the beginning of Friday morning. She didn't seem so timid.
No, a professional instructor will see that, take each person as an individual, and build upon that. And what you want to do is get them the confidence, show them, but you got to talk to them as a human being. They're allowed to make mistakes. The other thing an instructor needs to know is what's important and what's not. A lot of instructors will dwell on things that are just, it doesn't really matter. We got to hit the big things, the core things, the safety, the mechanics, the simplicity, the repetition, having the same hand moves on a load-on-load sequence, loading the rifle the same way. You know, during the course, you saw some rifles, magazines fell out. Why? Didn't push-pull. They didn't do a good load sequence. They went click. So it's really doing the basics on demand, which is high speed, and that's what it's all about. But you've got to hammer that home to them, because a lot of people are coming in looking at fluff, and they're looking at gadgets. They're using yes, you know.
And that's something else that we talked about is this. Unlike, people said, guys come in and they're like, oh man, I bought this rig and I bought this and I bought this. And have you ever used it before? Oh yeah, I use it all the time. Well, where do you use it? I go to the square flat range where I stand on the 10-yard line and I use my gear. Mm-hmm. But have you ever hustled through the woods or up a hill or in a house?
Oh yes.
And so, yeah, we saw a trail of, every once in a while there's the magazines, there's this falling off.
One exited a vehicle, came across a console, pistol snagged the seatbelt. And so it came out, hit the ground. Nobody's yelling at them. We just say, here's how to fix it. So we want students to learn about their equipment. The other thing is ammo. People always ask me, well, how much ammo? Well, if you're doing a lethal hit with every 3 rounds, calculate that per magazine. Calculate that times 3 magazines. They're running a course and they're engaging sometimes 30 targets. They're using a mag and a half. And so why? Accuracy. We make them 0. We take the protocols, we put the emphasis where it should be, making hits, and then we build from there. They can go faster when they make the hits. If they can't make the hits, they can't go any faster.
Well, and also, how much weight, you and I both were infantry soldiers. So, or I was an infantry Marine.
Correct.
You know how that works.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But you learn very quickly that you have to justify every ounce on your body because you're carrying it all. I told him about field stripping MREs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what? Yeah. I'm not carrying a cardboard pouch if I don't need to carry a cardboard pouch, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And people, they get online and they buy the huge, vest with all the mags and stuff. And that's really super cool G.I. Joe until you have to hustle up a hill. And the hill's not even that long. The hill's like, 200 yards. The hill we did yesterday morning?
Yep.
A couple hundred yards. Hustle up a couple hundred yards and get to the top and then kneel and try and make a shot on a silhouette. And you're,
oh, yes. Yep.
You're like an asthmatic patient, and you're like, wow, do I really need 15 pounds of ammo? Or could I get away with, a little bit less?
Exactly. What do you really need to make it? Here's the other thing I see is a lot of folks buy all this gear and they're going to wear it. They're not in shape. And so they're going to do a high-stress course, add 30, 40, 50 pounds to their body. It's not good for their joints or ligaments. You got to actually build up the muscles to support that. So the drill. I was infantry, an Army doggy. And what happens is, we've got a magazine weighs a pound. A gallon of water is 8 pounds. You've got all these different weights. And if you can't move it from point A to point B and then get in a fight and do it again multiple times, you got to reevaluate your load. What's realistic? You're exactly right. We got to have to teach them how to breathe. A lot of people try to make multiple shots in one breath. Yeah. I try to teach them to breathe every shot.
Yeah. When the world starts closing in on you.
Oh, that tunnel closes.
Ladies and gentlemen, if the world is closing in on you, breathe.
Exactly.
And it will open back up. I was thinking there's I've got half a notebook worth of notes from. I realized that I didn't have my notebook on me. So yesterday I fixed myself and I started writing copious notes because I am going to be doing a written article as well about the class. But there's so many things that you don't realize, and we talked about this a little off air about the folks that like to tell you how their daddy, grandpappy, Uncle Jim, whatever, taught them how to shoot.
Correct.
So I don't need your class. I know how to shoot. I'm good. And that's great if your goal is to shoot, soup cans off of stumps. If that's your goal, or to shoot dove. Okay, great. But surviving in with the Katrina thing, some people were inconvenienced for 72 hours. Like in Biloxi, where we live, there were places on the coast that were completely out of electricity, out of utilities, nothing for weeks.
Correct.
Not 72 hours, 3-4 weeks. And even when they got it back, it was limited. Some back roads, it's priorities. Interstates first, state highway second, county roads, then maybe township roads. So if you live on a township road, the crews aren't going to show up for a long time. Knowing how to shoot dove or soup cans, yes. How does that help you in a post-Katrina, post-Joplin, whatever world where it's going to be you and your family for several days?
It's a false sense of security, and we see it all the time. It's ego, and we try to have a sign at the front gate that says, leave your ego here. Keep an open mind. I can't tell you how many hunting accidents we see in East Texas every year of folks that, a grandfather shoots their grandkid, or we have an accidental discharge, something happening where people are killed or injured because of firearm handling. We've got people here with a prosthesis because they rested a rifle or a shotgun on their foot and it discharged, and blew their foot off. So we see it all the time, and I don't go out there and I don't attack these people. I said, I'm here. You want to know? I'll teach you. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, again, it's a false sense of security. Then you add in high stress. And then how do you deal with people? That's the other factor. We're dealing with people and weapon systems, people you're going to address, come into contact to.
You know, that right there, and I'm glad that you brought that, because that's going to be my next main point, is in the United States of America today, in a post-crisis, Joplin, Ferguson, it doesn't matter what it is, finding adult humans that are in possession of firearms, or even good guys with guns, that's not hard. That's not the difficult part. No. The difficult part isn't finding a bunch of people that own guns. The difficult part is finding people that own guns that have their head screwed on and have a little bit of a plan.
Correct.
Because what you see, and I'm sure what I saw at Katrina and other like posts like Gustav and Ike and so forth, people and a lot of guys. Let's face it, guys are like, man, I got this black rifle and I got mags and I got my 4-wheeler, and boy, when this hurricane happens, I'm going to fix things. Well, but you have your plan. Your neighbor has his plan. This guy, everybody's operating on their own independent plan. And that's when you have bad things happen. Fratricide.
Oh, it's exactly right.
So it's learning to work together. Forget about all the IPSC marksmanship stuff. Think about this. What's most important is being able to work in conjunction with other humans, not just your gun. It's not just you and your gun against the world.
Oh, exactly. It's a neighborhood, and you can start slow. And I told the students in class, some people are going to look at you funny. I mean, you've got those neighbors. But if you find the ones that are like-minded, ex-mil vets, different people, some law enforcement, what will happen is they understand. They've seen the real world out there. They know how bad it can go. And what you can do is talk, plan. The people aren't ready to bring into the fold and educate them, then that's fine. Wait till there's blood on the floor. What they do is they go into a panic mode. They're going to be screaming, all right, what do we do? How do we do it? Well, composure is contagious, and so is panic or chaos. So what you want to do is have your plans, plan your plans, get the small core group, and then when something happens, then you can guide the rest of them, because they're going to be looking for guidance. They don't know. They don't have the answers to the test.
Yeah, in America today, if we are in desperate supply or shortage of one thing, it's leadership.
Oh, yeah.
It's people who know how to lead. People are afraid to lead. They've been taught that if I interject myself and lead, then that's rude or unreasonable or mean-spirited, or I have to take everyone's feelings into account. And so in the process of taking everyone's feelings into account, they accomplish nothing.
That's correct. You can look at our government as an example. There is no leadership. We're an unguided missile as a country right now. We have no foreign direction. We have no internal direction. It's just they're trying to manage chaos without any plans. And so that's the problem. And then it trickles down. A lot of times these neighborhoods, you figure out who's like-minded, talk to them, come online. You can approach your neighborhood watch organizations or homeowners association, and just have basic plans. But you can also have plans within plans, so if something does go bad, and just start it incrementally. A lot of people are resistant to this. They ego-driven, like we said. So we drop the egos, and when things go bad, they'll come out to talk to you.
And people have asked us, they're like, well, I'm not really sure how to approach my neighbors because, what I would say for sure is don't walk up to them and say, when the end of the world comes, what are you going to do? Are you prepared for the end of the world? And they look at you like, okay, weirdo.
Oh, yeah.
But if you say to them, depending on where you live, like say you live in Minnesota, you say, if there was an ice storm, a prolonged ice storm, is your family prepared?
That's correct.
Gulf Coast, if we had another Gustav, Katrina, Ike, are you prepared? And I would even, what we've done, we have the Patriot Fire Team organization that we encourage people to get involved in, is just ask your family, say, and I like how as a cop, I'm mad at myself, or former cop, for not using the term mutual aid agreement. Mm-hmm. But essentially what your Patriot Fire Team is you say to your friends, if my family needs help, will you help me? And I will help your family. It's a mutual aid agreement.
That's exactly right. I've got a core of probably 5 people. A lot of them are ex-mil vets. I've got a nurse on our streets from Vietnam. I've got Another gentleman is Navy. And what happens is we talk to each other. We all think alike. We've had to cut our way out of the neighborhood multiple times after storms, so we keep our chainsaws prepped. We've got extra fuel. Those that have been through this and weathered and want to live a little bit more comfortable, we get generators for our house. So we don't have to really change our lifestyle. We can go ahead and it may take a week to get everything back on, but we've got enough fuel stored up. And so some people learn from it. Some people are, they're not. They're going to be hard-headed. That's okay. I mean, that's up to them. But we try to, set an example and then keep the core, keep that small circle, like you talk about SEER committee. Keep your circle small, good people, and then you can help guide the other ones when panic sets in. Normally, panic's going to come in. They're going to do a spike, and you don't want to have to go out when that panic sets in. You don't want to have to go to Walmart, get gas. You want to already have it set up. And what happens is let the 1 or 2 day panic ride out, and then you can kind of come in and sort things out from there.
Plan so as not to be a part of the problem.
That's correct.
You can't stop that from happening. You and we can't stop the vermin, the bottom feeders, the auction thieves. We can't stop them from mobbing the Walmart.
That's correct.
We can't stop that from happening. But what we can do is we can choose not to be a part of the problem.
That's exactly right. A little bit of, don't let your vehicles run under 3/4 of a tank. Keep them full. An extra gallon of gas here or 5 gallons here. A little bit of water, food. You can ride things out for a few days until they stabilize. Otherwise, you're inducing yourself and your family into a panic-driven frenzy. And like you said, opportunists come out at that time. And so why put yourself in that scenario?
Yeah, and all right, how do you hunt over in Africa? You wait by the watering hole. In America, a lot of the game wardens and the game laws are like, it's illegal to hunt over bait and this and that. And I've always laughed about it because if somebody is an actual hunter or sportsman, you say, you can't hunt over bait. Can I hunt by a stream or a watering hole? Well, yeah. Well, that's bait because that eventually they're going to come there. Well, and we talked during the last part of class today, we got into hospitals.
Correct.
And a hospital is sadly going to be the watering hole. It's going to be the place where people who are panicked, don't know what else to do, or who are driven by the desire for narcotics or whatever, they're going to go there. And you can't move the hospital. People know where it is. So you need to not go there. You need to not go to Walmart because that's where it's going to happen.
It's a magnet.
So don't go there. It's a magnet.
It's
a butthole magnet.
And it's sad that the hospitals, but, a lot of them, they may have the one officer. Well, guess what? When it goes bad, they're going to get swarmed. Think about the people that are, mood stabilizers. And there's some people that are really on the fringe that need it, or they're going to go off. And so they're out of drugs. How about people with blood pressure medicine, diabetes, all these drugs, and they don't have a stockpile. So they're worried about life and death for their families. And again, that is the only conduit they have to these meds a lot of times. Hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. Well, who's going to protect them? Now, you got doctors in shifts. They're going to go out to their cars every day. They're targets. And again, a lot of people don't think through this to the end game, but you can talk to these hospitals that have endured these crises, and it's very nerve-wracking and chaotic.
Mm-hmm. So takeaway from something like an urban defense course is you will feel better if you have skill and experience. I guess if you could, kind of like give your brochure form, but when somebody leaves here, okay, today's Sunday, we just said goodbye to the students what is it that you expect when they leave your class after 3 days, that takeaway that everyone should have from urban defense course?
There's so many, everything from confidence in their weapon systems. Try to have them. We'll just start with weapons and the rifle. It needs to be one golf club that'll play the whole course. That means iron sights, optics, whatever, low light. And we're going to evolve this into a low light course as well. But I want them to feel comfortable with that weapon system, making a hit as far as they can see. Okay, so now they have a useful tool. Also, their handgun. What can they do? How far can they reach? Well, we're shooting 80 to 100 yards as a suppression with the pistol. So again, that can be pushed out of the norm. So they have weapon systems now. They know how much ammo. They know how to carry the ammo. Like you said, some people drop magazines. If they didn't load it right, they fired one round, magazine popped out. So it reinforced why we do a load sequence. All these little things will give them confidence in their technical skills, And then mental confidence as well. How much weight can they haul? If they're burned out after a 300-yard move, then they got to reevaluate their lifestyle, their physical condition, how much water are they bringing, and then what happens there is we're a continuing resource. A lot of times students will go through a course, they may only pick up 50 to 75%. Mm-hmm. They'll start I guess you'd say going over it in their mind next week. And what we want to do is I have people email me from 10 years ago, 15 years ago. What about this? What about that? Who do you recommend? What kind of equipment was that? And we try to be an ongoing resource for them. So, again, if they don't pick it up here, we try to be there for them as a library or resource so we can help them. And when they do, now they can start a plan of action when they get back home for the mental prep. That's half the battle right there.
Well, and when I've taught classes and I've told people, you should have more questions when you leave than when you got here. And they give you that weird look like, well, then you didn't teach me right. No, actually, if you were paying attention, if you're absorbing, and you're going through this process that we call learning,
that's correct.
You're going to it's the whole unconscious incompetence thing. And then you become consciously competent, and you're like, wow, now I know not only what I don't know, but I know my limitations and how can I improve. And be like, selection is a
never-ending process,
and you are a student for life.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And you saw it in the course. My model, my MO, I show them the whole elephant. I show them everything from outside contact, inside contact, fire maneuver, vehicles, buildings. And when I say, all right, just on this one fire maneuver module going forward to this building, there can be no contact. That means no visual. There can be contact with somebody that's unarmed. There can be contact with somebody that's armed. There can be contact with somebody that shoots at you. All right, how do you solve all those solutions? Then you have multiple opponents. How do we deal with that? But what I want to do is give them the basics and then say you can do A, B, or C. That's your choice. And so we do that. They'll start thinking about this, and they can usually take something from the class and apply it and say, all right, I can do this. Here's my priorities of work is what I like to tell them, which means we get security first, we do medical, then we do comms. And so if you do it in that order every time and you keep it at ABC, you're golden.
And one thing that I really appreciated, because we push, we have a class called Beyond the Band-Aid, and basically I took TCCC from a 4-day class down to a 2-day class, and these are the things you can do to keep you or your family members alive until the ambulance shows up, whenever that happens to be.
Exactly.
Is that they did encounter, they would go into a shoot house, and in the last room, that wasn't just bad people, it was a good person that needs medical attention, that needs a tourniquet, or what have you. So we're putting that into play as well. You say, and I think a lot of people fall into that trap where they assume that in my gunfight, only bad people are going to be shot or injured. All the good people are going to be, high five and we walk off screen. But good people can and do bleed as well.
Oh, exactly. But I tell them, if you don't bring the bandages, they're not going to get there. I've told people about medical, and I've seen some law enforcement officers that didn't carry it, and they had to take a bed sheet and shove it in an entrance wound for a 40 cal hit on a person that tried to kill themselves. So what ends up happening is if you don't bring it, we know the answers to the test. So I pack wound kits, which means I'll have Kerlix, Coflex, combat gauze, tourniquets, rubber gloves, all that. And we carry it not only on ourselves and our kits, but we also carry it as range instructors in case something happens on the range. We're always ready for that medical emergency. Now, again, I'm thinking family members. I want to have all the gear there to save a family. I want to save myself if I get hit. So we practice tourniquets. We issue them out in class. We work the tourniquets. It's critical. We do medical in every class. It's big. We've never seen it per se except a Band-Aid here or there, but we're always ready for that worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah. It's like packing the umbrella and it probably won't rain if you pack the umbrella, but if you didn't, if you walked out and you don't have your poncho in your pack, it's going to rain all weekend.
Oh yes.
That's the one way to make it rain all weekend is to leave your poncho in your foot locker.
Leave your snivel gear, you bet.
Now, Paul, I'm going to hit you with something, and this isn't like a surprise question. And you've been working with Panteo, and you've done a number of videos. Before we get it any farther, is it just csat.com?
It's a full word. www.combatshootingandtactics.com.
Okay, combatshootingandtactics.com is where
correct.
They go to get information about the all the upcoming classes, the different kind of classes you
Yes,
offer,
sir.
and so forth. So combatshootingandtactics.com is where they go. But in your videos, and I know if I don't ask you about this, half of my audience will write me hate mail.
Oh, it's okay.
One of them is the Battle of the Black Sea.
Correct.
Because you were present for an October event called Black Hawk Down, or the Battle of Mogadishu, or Battle of the Black Sea, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not going to ask you to recount that entire experience because, A, that would be like a whole week's worth of radio. But I was very, very fortunate back in 2009 to sit in this classroom with a group of individuals that our mutual friend Dave Biggers brought in, and to get the Mogadishu debrief. And after I got the Mogadishu debrief from somebody that was actually there, I started watching and paying attention to urban problems with a different light or a different view. And I see some of these urban problems, and I think, it's like, was it Solomon that said nothing is new under the sun? I believe it was. And that was all the way back in the early 90s. But you can look at Ferguson or Baltimore, or you can see very close similarities in these urban problems. From your experience, do you see things that are very similar, even though they're separated by continents and cultures and so forth, but the behavior, the opportunists, the people that get people ginned up to do bad things, and in that situation, I mean, do you see that? Tell me about it.
All the above. Yeah, it's cyclic. I guess the best thing we can say. It'll go back and it'll happen again. Man has moved out of the jungles. He's fighting in urban environments right now. So that's where the population centers are. That's where the problems we're having. So what ends up happening is, we saw it, Somalia, and then these internal problems that we're having. I want to call them self-generated. They're ginned up media. The politicians are doing this. A small fringe element, I guess Black Lives Matter, I call that a homegrown terrorist organization. And what happens is we don't really have problems. These people have never been overseas to see real, despair in people's problems. And so we've got a generation of putting their hand out. Now, we haven't really pushed it, though, either. Baltimore, they could have kicked some butt. They could have stopped that stuff on a dime, but they chose not to. The politicians chose not to. Let them riot. No, we don't do that. You don't destroy my equipment, my things, my house, my livelihood. But that's anti-American. And then we've got the same things happening all over, but you've got to understand we've got 280 countries in the world. They're all at different stages of development, different governments, politics, problems they've had. And so what happens is they're going to be at different phases, and we're going to see reoccurring problems, but it's how we address those problems. And then we should be smart enough. I mean, think about the talent pool we've put up for politicians. It's really crazy right now. You look at it with all the talent we've got in America, and we could be fixing a lot of this, but sometimes we don't learn, we don't document, we don't catalog, we don't make better. We take 2 steps back to go a step forward. We need people that are going to go forward and fix these things, and it's part of it's just our generation, and our kids. We're doing them a disservice because we're going to hand them a dung sandwich. I guess I can say that. A mess. Yes.
Yeah, hanging it. And I really, my wife is a restaurant manager, and I've encountered some of the people that she's hired. And of course, she hires young college-age kids. Mm-hmm. And I said to one of them, I said, I'm sorry. Yeah. And they're like, for what? I said, for the world that we're giving you.
Yes.
I apologize for what we're about to hand you, because 18 and 19-year-olds, they're all bright-eyed, and they're like, oh, the future is wonderful. And I'm like, I'm really sorry for what you're going to have to deal with.
Yes.
And I really believe that his generation, and I'm pointing at Jared right now, who's 25 years old, if the Republic is to be saved and to be resurrected, it's going to have to be his generation and actually his children that do it. Correct. You and I can help them. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's where we are right now with whether it's urban defense, whether it's the books that we write, the videos that we do, is can we offer them the tools so that when it's time for them to do the job, they'll be able to.
Exactly. And actually, I did the Battle of the Black Sea in case I never wanted to talk about it again. It was there. Mm. Or I could say it's documented. You want to see it? It's right there. This is no BS. But the real reason I started the videos was my instructor classes and students coming to instructor classes. I had to teach them how to shoot first before I could teach them to be an instructor. So what I did is I made a video on how to shoot first. It wasn't for the community. It wasn't made to make money. It was to teach guys, this is where you should be as an instructor before you even come to me. Because I have to teach you how to safely run lines, clipboards, timers, shooter development, a whole bunch of things in there. And if I'm teaching you to shoot, you didn't learn that skill set somewhere. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I preloaded those, and that's their pre-work now. So I'll teach you how to be an instructor, but you got to bring those skills to the table. We don't do that in society. Colleges are going one way, and what we've got is business going another. Businesses have to retrain all their college graduates to actually function. And that's sad.
Yeah, they're like, we need you to have that skill before you show up.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So I'm not actually teaching you how to. I don't have time to teach you basic math when I hire you. You should have already known that when you got here.
Exactly.
So what we're doing, your generation, our generation, you and I, is our job. And if you're listening to me right now, your job, if you are in your 40s or 50s, is are you preparing your kids and your grandkids or potential grandkids? Are you going to enable them or give them the tools? Because they're going to. I don't think that there's any way we can avoid this. I think the ship is headed for the cove, and
exactly.
You can't turn a freighter around on a dime, and I think we've already passed the point of where we needed to turn, and we're going to crash eventually.
It's tough. I have faith in the country. We have a lot of combat vets which stand up to all the insanity and the knuckleheads in this world, and we could make a big change in a rapid. It would be painful, but it would get their attention. Here's the thing that I learned, from the Vietnam group is, Vietnam were my trainers, the Vietnam veterans, and a lot of them it was shut up, watch. Well, the problem is they didn't teach. You had to learn OJT. And what I'm trying to do is change that paradigm shift, that thought process of we have to train them. We have to say, all right, this can happen, that can happen, or this can happen. Here's your solutions for these. If you have a simple solution that'll cover all three, more better. But what happens is require each generation to go through that learning curve again instead of getting them a step up. Our job is to make them a little bit better than we were. Our parents did that, and some kids see it, some people don't. My mom worked 3 jobs, put food on the table. That was that work ethic back then. And what happens is it instilled in me why we're doing what we're doing. And so I'm going to give my kids a little bit more. It may not be we're more well out. If you look at when you were a kid, what you had compared to today and what your kids have, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is give them more, not in, the monetary, but more the intellectual, perseverance, the honor, integrity, all those things that are lacking today.
Yeah, we've lost the requirement or the duty of one generation to pass on the lessons to the upcoming generation so they know, but the modern generation has abdicated that duty.
Yes.
So we have people that, Paul, I was working 3, 4, 5 years ago with 18 and 19-year-old E1s and E2s, and I would throw something out to them, just assuming, okay, you guys already have this knowledge, let's move on, let's build on that, and I get the dough, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know that?
Yeah.
How do you not know this? Okay, I guess we'll waste time and go back, and I'll teach you the alphabet so that I can teach you to spell words, so I can teach you to write full sentences. They should be able to, and I think a lot of it is intellectual laziness. I think part of it is the fact that we have an internet, and so we default and think that our kids will just having access to information and having intelligence are not the same.
No.
And we confuse those things.
That's correct. I'm proud of my kids. Both of them are combat vets. Stepson went to Iraq the first war. He was in I don't want to call it an action trash support unit, and he did great. I took him on a 3-day and put him through the same courses I put other students through to get him up to stuff. And he went over there. He goes, First Sergeant, I need a dry fire. He goes, First Sergeant says, no, that'll wear down your firing pin. We have booger eaters in charge that don't understand basic marksmanship skill sets, and people trying to that makes them better themselves, maintain a perishable skill.
Doing the right thing, and they're being held back from doing the right
exactly.
thing.
It's incredible. And so the problem is, too, with the current military, a lot of the good people vote with their feet, and they walk out.
And they're gone.
Yeah. And so what you have is, a lot of good people, but we got some leftovers. And
we got pensioners, people that are just hanging out to get their checks.
Thank you, sir. You bet. And so we owe it to our kids, especially in service, to give them the highest level training. So I want them to come back. I want them to kill as many of the enemy as possible. Be as efficient as possible in their job.
Now, we're getting ready to come to the end of the show, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Paul, unfortunately, a lot of people in the audience, especially if they're under age 40, they don't have any idea what the Battle of Mogadishu was all about. And let's say that they have a genuine desire. They say, I want to know the real truth. I don't want to know the Hollywood truth or the mythology. What sources say if they, other than just like coming to one of your classes, sitting next to you at a table, and what's a good source?
You go to Amazon, just type in Paul Howe. It'll come up with the Panteo DVDs. I am biased, but I try to articulate it as close to as what happened as I can remember. And then I wrote a book, Leadership and Training of the Fight, which I use little vignettes from there. And again, I didn't have the book polished. What I wanted to do is put it in my verbiage, my thought process. At the time, a lot of books are written 20 years later. Memories degrade. Authors and sometimes ghostwriters, what they call is soften it. Well, I didn't want to soften. There's some books out there with the old breed about the Pacific with the Marines. When I read those, I said, that's accurate. I can articulate that. I wanted the same type things on video. So there's some different sources out there. I'm pretty much, I wrote what I wrote, said what I said, and I put it to bed. So that's my 2 cents worth. You can start there and look at different things, talk to different people. But I wanted it from a shooter's perspective, a team leader's perspective. And, I was very fortunate to bring all my guys back from that op. So that's one of my, I guess, prouder moments. So,
yeah. All right, Paul Howe is the owner, operator, founder of CSAT, Combat Shooting and Tactics in Nacogdoches. Now, thank you, and we got all the way to the end, but thank you to Duracoat, Frog Lube, Velocity Triggers, SWAT Fuel, Brownells, Century Arms, and Crossbreed Holsters. And thank you to everybody out there in the Student of the Gun audience for supporting the people who support us and give us the opportunity to get on the road and go to damp, wet, rainy Texas. It doesn't always rain here, I know. Just sometimes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back very soon with more. And remember, you're a beginner once, but you should indeed be a student for life.